Representative Paulsen.
Well, I thank the gentlelady for yielding. I want to thank you for your leadership, along with Representative Wagner, in coordinating and drawing attention to what this horrific crime truly is, spending a little bit of time on the House floor. You know, when you hear the words sex trafficking and human trafficking, you know, a lot of people just think this is something that happens in faraway countries. It doesn't happen in the United States, and it's very sad to say it is happening right here in our own backyards, knowing that these traffickers are exploiting young girls for their own financial gain, right in our own communities. And we're talking about 12, 13, and 14-year-old young girls. It's pretty hard to imagine, but it's true, and it's happening in our cities, it's happening in our suburbs, it's happening in rural towns. And I'll say I realize how critical it is now to educate our community about what I've learned from actually speaking and talking with some of these victims. And I'll remember speaking with Deanna. Deanna's age 13, and she tells the story about how within days of meeting the so-called boyfriend, she finds herself in Philadelphia and Chicago being trafficked and has the wherewithal to escape with her life. But then I meet a mother of another young girl who was violently raped and murdered this last February. You know, and the only good news I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, is that the Twin Cities, which is home now to Minneapolis being number 13 in the level of sex trafficking and human trafficking that occurs, is also home to many leaders now in the fight against human trafficking. And over the last 2 years, I've met with great leaders that are inspiring the community to make a difference and pass model legislation. It's now being replicated across the country. You know, I think of Anita Carter at Breaking Free. I think of Grant Snyder, who's a Minneapolis police sergeant, who was the very first officer in Minneapolis that was dedicated to working with trafficking victims. And now he leads his department in teaching local law enforcement, both in Minnesota and in other states around the country, about how to build trust and better relationships with at-risk youth. We've also got our county attorneys like John Choi, who's been leading the fight, getting top convictions now for a lot of these abusers. And nonprofit community has been top-notch as well, with Catholic Charities and Brittany's Place and the Harriet Tubman Center and the Family Partnership, all making a difference. And it does give you hope, Mr. Speaker, that such a large and passionate group of people now are working together to put an end to this modern-day slavery. So the message is spreading. I'll tell you this, is that we need more safe harbor laws. We need them because Minnesota became the 5th state in the country to approve safe harbor legislation. That means we're essentially giving these children, we're treating them as victims, giving them the services they need and not treating them as criminals. And that's really critical. And after this safe harbor legislation went into effect in Minnesota, guess what? We started arresting more Johns than ever before. Trafficking convictions more than doubled. And it's time that we bring what is working in Minnesota to the national level as well. And I know tomorrow we're going to be voting on this legislation to have this safe harbor legislation that I've authored pass with bipartisan support. A number of other issues, legislation will pass with bipartisan support. The good news is, as the gentlewoman knows, this is about saving lives, and we're going to make a difference. With that, I would be happy to yield back.
Well, thank you.